Welcome back to the channel. Imagine standing at the edge of two mirrors facing each other, your reflection stretching into infinity. That image captures how humans have long wondered, what if our universe is not alone? What if every decision, every possibility, unfolds somewhere else, in another version of reality? Today's story begins there, with the strange, almost poetic idea of parallel worlds. For decades, scientists and dreamers alike have asked whether this concept belongs to the hard logic of quantum physics or the soft language of mysticism. In quantum theory, particles do not follow one path. They hover between possibilities until someone observes them. That uncertainty sparked one of physics' most daring ideas, the many worlds interpretation. It claims that every outcome of every event splits the universe in two. One world where you turned left, another where you did not. Into physics, it is not fantasy, it is mathematics pushed to its extreme. Yet, for all its elegance, science has not found proof. No experiment has reached across realities. So while the equations allow it, the evidence remains silent. Mystics, however, never needed equations. They speak of layers of being different vibrations, timelines, or spiritual planes. To them, parallel worlds are not distant galaxies, but inner reflections of consciousness. What physicists call superposition, mystics call awakening. Different tools, same hunger, to understand what lies beyond what we can touch. So the question is not simply whether other worlds exist, but how we choose to look for them, through telescopes or through the self. Either way, the search reveals something about us, that reality feels too vast, too strange, to be contained in just one version of the truth. That is where our exploration starts. Every second, trillions of quantum events unfold particles, deciding whether to spin one way or another, photons choosing a path through a slit, atoms shifting ever so slightly. According to the many worlds interpretation, every one of those moments does not collapse into a single outcome. Instead, the universe splits. One version follows each possible result. It is a radical answer to an old question in physics: when a particle can exist in several states at once, what happens when we measure it? Traditional quantum theory says the wave function collapses into one reality. But Hugh Everett, the American physicist who proposed the many worlds view in the 1950 seconds, offered another option: nothing collapses. All outcomes continue to exist, each in its own universe, completely real, completely separate. If Everett was right, then somewhere a version of you took a different job. Mr. Bus never met the person who changed your life. Each possibility is written into another branch of space-time. We just can't cross between them. For decades, his theory sat at the fringe, too strange even for physicists used to strange things. Yet, over time, it found quiet respect. It fits neatly with the math, avoids messy collapses, and answers some puzzles about quantum behavior. Still, it raises uncomfortable questions. If every possible outcome happens, what does choice mean? What does you mean? The theory replaces randomness with endless versions of reality, an infinity of yous, each unaware of the others. In the lab, scientists can't test this splitting directly. We only see its traces in the behavior of particles that seem to know too much about their own possibilities. But the many worlds interpretation remains one of the boldest attempts to describe existence, not as a single thread, but as a vast, shimmering web of every path reality could ever take. For all their beauty, theories about parallel worlds still live mostly on paper. Quantum physics allows them mathematically, but nature has not yet confirmed them. No experiment has shown a measurable sign of another universe brushing against ours. No particle has slipped through the cracks to prove we are part of a branching reality. The difficulty is built into the idea itself. If other universes exist, they might be causally sealed, meaning no signal, no light, no particle can travel between them. We would never know they are there, except through theory. That makes the concept scientifically fascinating, but nearly impossible to verify. Researchers have tried indirect ways. Some cosmologists look for patterns in the cosmic microwave background ripples of ancient light from the Big Bang that might show a collision between universes. Others study quantum computing or entanglement, hoping to glimpse evidence of overlapping realities in the smallest systems. But so far, all data returns to the same quiet truth. The math works, the proof does not. That does not mean the idea is wrong. Science often begins with intuition and equations long before instruments can catch up. The atom, the black hole, even gravitational waves, all started as theory. Yet, until a test can be made, many worlds remain a story told in probabilities, not observations. Still, this uncertainty does not make the concept meaningless. It sharpens the edge of curiosity. Physicists continue to refine models that might connect quantum behavior to larger structures, to see if tiny fluctuations could echo across universes. Every experiment that fails to find proof still teaches us something, that our world, at the very least, is stranger and more fragile than it appears. Beyond the quantum scale, cosmologists have their own version of the same riddle. The multiverse theory suggests our universe could be just one bubble in an endless cosmic foam, billions, maybe infinite, others drifting beyond our reach. Each might have its own physical laws, its own forms of matter, even its own kind of time. This idea grew from the study of cosmic inflation, the moment right after the Big Bang, when the universe expanded faster than light. Some versions of inflation theory imply that expansion never stopped completely. It kept spawning new pocket universes, like bubbles in boiling water. Each bubble cooled at a slightly different rate, freezing in its own version of physics. To the human mind, it sounds almost mythic, a reality of realities. But for many physicists, the multiverse is not poetry. It is a logical extension of known math. If space-time can stretch infinitely, and quantum events can unfold in countless ways, then everything that can happen may indeed happen somewhere. Still, it is a theory that walks a fine line between science and speculation. There is no way yet to observe these other universes directly, though researchers sometimes hunt for gravitational or light patterns that could betray their presence. The multiverse idea forces a strange humility. It suggests our universe is not special, only one note in a vast cosmic chord. And if that is true, then everything familiar, our stars, our atoms, even our sense of uniqueness, may be just a local variation in an infinite song still unfolding across unseen worlds. While scientists draw diagrams and equations to describe alternate realities, mystics use stories, symbols, and experience. In spiritual traditions, the idea of parallel worlds often points inward rather than outward. Instead of countless universes spread across space, they imagine layers of existence that unfold within consciousness itself. Some traditions speak of subtle realms where thought shapes matter instantly, or dimensions accessible only through meditation and altered awareness. To mystics, these are not hypothetical constructs. They are part of an ongoing dialogue between the soul and the universe. A dream, a vision, a déjà vu moment might all be glimpses into these other layers of being. Ancient philosophies from the East, such as Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, have long described multiple planes of reality, each vibrating at different frequencies of energy or spirit. In the West, the idea surfaces in Gnostic writings, Hermetic teachings, and modern New Age thought. Across all of them runs a similar current, that what we perceive as one world is just the lowest octave of a much larger symphony. Modern mystics merge this language with contemporary science, speaking of vibrations, frequencies, and quantum fields as bridges between consciousness and cosmos. Though physics may not recognize these as literal parallels, both views share an impulse to map the unseen. In this way, mysticism does not compete with physics. It complements it. Where one uses math to explain the structure of reality, the other uses metaphor to explain its meaning. Both chase the same mystery from opposite sides of the mirror. Long before quantum theory gave language to uncertainty, ancient thinkers had already drawn cosmic maps filled with overlapping worlds. In Hindu cosmology, the universe is not a single creation, but a cycle, infinite, rhythmic, and layered. Reality unfolds across multiple lokas, or realms of existence, each with its own laws and inhabitants. Some are material, others purely spiritual. Together, they form a grand, breathing cosmos, in which birth, death, and rebirth move endlessly. The Upanishads and later Puranas describe these realms not as distant places, but as different states of being. A person's consciousness determines which realm they perceive or inhabit, much like tuning a radio to a different frequency. This idea mirrors, in an ancient way, what modern theories imply, that there could be countless realities existing at once, separated not by space, but by perception and vibration. Elsewhere, similar ideas appeared. In Buddhist cosmology, there are 31 planes of existence, stretching from hellish realms of suffering to formless states of pure awareness. In ancient Egyptian and Greek traditions, souls travelled between visible and invisible worlds, learning through each passage. Even Mesoamerican mythology spoke of layered heavens and underworlds, each as real as our own. These visions were never meant as mere fantasy. They were frameworks to understand the soul's journey and the moral weight of action. The ancients did not separate physics from philosophy. Both were attempts to describe the same mystery: how existence multiplies and renews itself. So when today's scientists debate the multiverse, they are echoing something humanity has always sensed, that reality might be far bigger, stranger, and more continuous than one world could ever contain. Mysticism does not ask for peer-reviewed data. It asks for inner evidence. What matters is not measurement, but experience the feeling of touching something larger than the self. In that sense, mystical approaches to parallel worlds are less about proving existence and more about recognizing connection. A person might encounter another world through meditation, dreams, or intuition. These states often carry the texture of reality: vivid colors, sensory details, emotional clarity, yet dissolve when reason steps in. Mystics interpret them not as hallucinations, but as glimpses of deeper layers of being filtered through the human mind. Symbolism plays a major role. The idea of multiple realities becomes a metaphor for the complexity of existence itself. One event can hold many meanings, one life can unfold in many directions. Rather than dividing the universe into literal parallel timelines, mystics see each moment as a convergence of unseen influences, spiritual, emotional, cosmic. This does not fit comfortably within scientific frameworks, and that is the point. Mysticism operates where language and logic begin to thin out. It values subjective truth, the kind that can't be graphed or replicated, but can still transform a person's understanding of reality. In a way, mysticism turns the question inside out. Instead of asking, "Do other worlds exist out there?" it asks, "How many worlds exist within me?" And for those who have glimpsed such inner dimensions, the answer feels less like theory and more like memory, a quiet certainty that we live among many layers of the same mysterious whole. If you placed a physicist and a mystic in the same room and asked them to describe reality, both would use the word energy, but they would mean entirely different things. For the physicist, energy is quantifiable, joules, equations, measurable exchanges between particles. For the mystic, energy is experiential, the warmth of presence, the vibration of thought, the invisible pulse behind life. Both describe motion, but one measures it, the other feels it. Quantum physics demands proof. Every claim must pass through experiment and mathematics, every observation recorded with precision. It treats uncertainty not as mystery, but as data, a probability to be modeled. Mysticism moves in the opposite direction. It treats uncertainty as the door to awareness. Where science asks how, mysticism asks why. The two approaches are not enemies. They are languages shaped for different terrains. Science thrives on replication, building truths that hold no matter who observes them. Mysticism thrives on revelation, truths that exist only in the moment of encounter. Yet their boundaries blur at the edges. Quantum physicists speak of entanglement, distant particles, connected beyond space and time. Mystics speak of unity, the sense that everything, everywhere, is woven from the same thread. One points with formulas, the other with intuition, but both trace the outline of an interconnected whole. In the end, the difference is less about what they study and more about how they see. Physics looks outward, seeking the architecture of the cosmos. Mysticism looks inward, seeking the consciousness that experiences it. And somewhere between those two gazes lies the quiet possibility that both are describing the same thing, just from opposite sides of the veil. Across centuries and cultures, one question keeps echoing: why does reality feel larger than what we can see? Both physicists and mystics sense that something in our perception is missing a layer, that the world, as ordinary as it seems, is too thin a slice of whatever truly exists. In science, that intuition drives theories like quantum superposition and dark matter, invisible structures that hint at dimensions beyond the familiar. Every experiment revealing uncertainty or unseen energy feels like another crack in the wall of what we think is real. Mystics, meanwhile, experience that same incompleteness from within. They speak of moments when boundaries dissolve during prayer, deep stillness, or even grief when the world suddenly expands in meaning. Those experiences suggest that reality is not limited by the physical, but includes vast inner territories of awareness. Both sides, then, are motivated by the same human tension, the sense that existence overflows its container. Science seeks to map the overflow, to measure its outlines. Mysticism seeks to dwell in it, to make peace with not knowing. When people imagine parallel worlds, they are not just dreaming of other universes. They are acknowledging a quiet truth that even this one feels layered, elusive, and unfinished. Whether through equations or meditation, both paths are attempts to understand that haunting spaciousness, the feeling that behind every known thing waits another, watching from just beyond the edge of comprehension. In the end, the idea of parallel worlds might not belong to science or mysticism alone. It lives in the space between them, a kind of mirror reflecting both logic and wonder. Quantum physics treats it as a framework for understanding probability, a mathematical necessity born from the rules of uncertainty. Mysticism treats it as a symbol of depth, a reminder that reality, like consciousness, has many rooms. What connects these interpretations is curiosity, the refusal to believe that what we see is all there is. Whether through equations or introspection, each approach reaches for the same mystery, how something as small as a particle or as vast as the soul can contain infinite possibilities. Maybe the difference is only one of translation. Where a physicist says branching universes, a mystic might say many selves. Where science sees waves of probability, spirituality sees ripples of intention. Each describes the same shimmering uncertainty from a different direction. So perhaps parallel worlds are not distant galaxies or ghostly copies of ourselves. They are perspectives, ways of understanding the richness of existence. You can treat them as science, as poetry, or as both at once. And in that choice lies the quiet message of the idea itself, that reality is not fixed but flexible, not singular but endlessly unfolding. Every time you imagine another possibility, you create one more version of the world somewhere, in thought or in space, waiting to be found. And so, we circle back to the question that started it all. What is real, and what might be waiting beside it? Whether you see parallel worlds as equations branching across infinity, or as mirrors of consciousness shimmering beneath thought, the pull is the same to know if our choices, our moments, might echo elsewhere. Maybe the answer does not live in proof or faith, but in the space between them. Science shows us what can be measured. Mysticism reminds us what can be felt. Together, they form a fuller kind of knowing, one that accepts mystery not as failure, but as invitation. In the end, parallel worlds might not be distant at all. They could be the unseen possibilities that live within every decision, every heartbeat, every blink of awareness. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep wondering what might be unfolding quietly beside the world you know.